ABC General Hospital Spoilers reveal that something has shifted in Sidwell's calculations, and he senses it long before he sees concrete proof. The prototype was supposed to be nearing its final stage, yet the updates from Britt feel increasingly cautious, increasingly technical, increasingly delayed. Lucas hovers too closely, asking careful questions under the pretense of medical oversight, inserting himself into timelines and review procedures that should have remained strictly scientific. To Sidwell, hesitation is never neutral. Delay suggests resistance, and resistance must be corrected before it spreads. Cullum notices the same slowdown, though his suspicion is more aggressive. He believes Britt is stalling intentionally, buying time for outside intervention, perhaps even hoping for extraction. Lucas's constant presence only strengthens that theory. The tension in the lab is palpable, heavy with unspoken fear. Sidwell decides the solution is simple: apply pressure through competition. If Britt cannot accelerate progress, he will bring in someone who can. The name Liesl Obrecht surfaces not out of sentiment, but utility. Her history with high-risk biomedical experimentation, her past involvement with controversial research networks, her familiarity with casseting technology, and Faison's darker ambitions make her an ideal candidate in Sidwell's eyes. He sees brilliance and ruthlessness. He does not see family. He does not know she is Britt's mother. Cullum approves the move eagerly, believing that introducing a second scientist will destabilize Britt further and force results. They frame the recruitment as opportunity, as intellectual freedom without bureaucratic limits. Liesl listens carefully, masking her reaction when she learns Britt is already embedded in the project. Years of survival have trained her to conceal shock beneath composure. She accepts the offer, stepping into the facility not as a pawn, but as a calculating observer. From Sidwell's perspective, the tension between the two women appears productive. Britt's demeanor tightens, her reports become even more meticulous. Lucas grows visibly uneasy. Sidwell interprets this as competitive strain. In reality, he has unknowingly created an alliance far more dangerous than rivalry. The moment Britt and Liesl are alone, the truth reshapes the entire landscape. No dramatic reunion, no overt acknowledgement, just a silent understanding that they are trapped inside the same engineered cage. Britt's first instinct is anger, protective and fierce. She never wanted Liesl near this operation. Liesl's instinct is colder, strategic. She assesses surveillance angles, staff rotations, Cullum's patterns of oversight. Lucas becomes the third point in a quiet triangle of resistance. His earlier delays, small data revisions, cautious timeline adjustments evolve into deliberate interference. Together, they begin embedding subtle flaws into the prototype. Not enough to expose sabotage, but sufficient to prevent immediate deployment. Sidwell grows impatient. Cullum grows suspicious. Surveillance tightens. Meetings shift from collaborative to interrogative. Access permissions become restricted. Every report is dissected for inconsistency, yet the prototype remains just shy of completion, perpetually promising but never final. Sidwell believes he is increasing control. In truth, he is destabilizing his own structure. The most dangerous element is the secret he and Cullum remain blind to, the maternal bond between the two scientists they think they are manipulating. If they discover it, the reaction will be swift and brutal. They will interpret it as deception, as coordinated betrayal. Until then, Britt and Liesl operate beneath the surface, communicating in glances, in phrasing, in shared silences that mask layered intent. Lucas risks more each day, aware that exposure could cost him everything. The deeper tragedy lies in Sidwell's miscalculation. He believes pressure fractures people. He does not understand that blood loyalty can harden into unbreakable resolve. Cullum pushes for a partial activation test, arguing that waiting invites scrutiny from external agencies. Sidwell insists on perfection. Their disagreement exposes cracks in their partnership. Liesl observes this carefully. Division at the top creates opportunity below. She and Britt begin embedding fail-safes disguised as calibration refinements, protective overrides masked as diagnostic redundancies. The prototype becomes less a weapon and more a battleground. Sidwell's impatience accelerates timelines. Cullum's paranoia intensifies enforcement. Each believes he is tightening the net. In reality, the structure trembles. If the prototype fails publicly, the fallout will extend beyond the lab into political corridors and intelligence networks. If it succeeds, it empowers corruption on a scale neither Britt nor Liesl can accept. The irony is devastating. Sidwell recruited Liesl to eliminate delay, unaware he was introducing the single force most capable of dismantling him from within. The emotional undercurrent intensifies as well. Britt struggles with guilt for drawing her mother into danger. Liesl struggles with fury at discovering her daughter has been cornered and coerced under threat of expendability. Lucas walks a razor's edge between fear and loyalty, knowing that one misstep could trigger violent retaliation. And all the while, Sidwell believes the tension he sees is simply professional rivalry. He mistakes controlled defiance for insecurity. He mistakes maternal restraint for compliance. The disaster forming is not explosive yet. It is structural, psychological, inevitable. When confrontation finally erupts, it will not merely concern a delayed scientific breakthrough. It will expose betrayal, miscalculation, and the fatal flaw of underestimating a mother protecting her child. Sidwell and Cullum believe they engineered dominance through manipulation and intimidation. They do not realize they have united two of the most formidable minds against them, and when the reckoning comes, it will not be because the prototype malfunctioned. It will be because they failed to calculate the one variable that no surveillance system can predict, the ferocity of maternal loyalty forged under pressure. The adjustment that changes everything does not come from Sidwell or Cullum, it comes from Liesl. The moment she fully understands the extent of the danger surrounding Britt, the coercion, the implied expendability, the threat that once the prototype is complete, her daughter will become unnecessary, something inside her fractures. Liesl has lived through manipulation, betrayal, and moral compromise, but realizing that Britt's life is being calculated as a disposable variable is a shock that cuts deeper than any professional risk. For the first time since stepping into the facility, her composure cracks in private. This is no longer about intellectual challenge or strategic positioning. This is about survival. The laboratory that was meant to trap them suddenly becomes something else in Liesl's mind, a resource. She understands its systems, its blind spots, its chemical inventories. She sees what Sidwell sees, a space designed for precision experimentation, but she also sees what he does not. It is a pharmacy of possibility. If Britt is being forced to work under threat, if the so-called prototype is tied to a treatment that dangles hope like bait, then Liesl can recalibrate the equation. She can create her own safeguard. Quietly, methodically, Liesl begins using the lab's resources after hours, not to advance the weapon, but to synthesize a compound, something that could counteract coercion, stabilize Britt's condition, or render the prototype's leverage useless. The exact formula evolves through trial and subtle testing. She masks her experiments within official data logs, embedding her private research into authorized chemical runs. Every adjustment is disguised as calibration for the main project. To outside observers, nothing appears out of place, but in truth, Liesl is engineering a parallel solution. The danger of this move cannot be overstated. Laboratory surveillance is tight. Cullum audits supply inventories. Sidwell monitors output metrics. Any anomaly could expose Liesl's deviation from protocol. Yet maternal instinct overrides caution. Liesl knows that if Britt remains dependent on Sidwell's promises, whether for protection, for medical treatment, or for professional survival, then her daughter remains controlled. Liesl refuses to allow that control to continue. What she does not fully calculate is the volatility of working with unstable materials under pressure. The facility is designed for precision, but tension compromises precision. One late-night synthesis produces an unexpected reaction minor at first, a fluctuation in containment temperature. Liesl corrects it quickly, but the system logs the spike. Cullum notices the irregularity in routine reports. He does not confront her immediately, but suspicion seeds itself. Meanwhile, Britt senses something shifting. She recognizes the pattern in her mother's movements, the deliberate pacing of late shifts. When Liesl finally confesses that she is attempting to formulate a contingency drug, something that could free Britt from dependence or neutralize the prototype's leverage, the revelation is both comforting and terrifying. Comforting because her mother is fighting for her. Terrifying because if discovered, the retaliation will be immediate and merciless. This is where the new catastrophe begins to form. The compound Liesl develops has promise, but it is untested outside controlled simulation. To refine it, she needs access to additional data, additional materials. Each step increases the risk of exposure. Sidwell's impatience with project delays intensifies, and Cullum's audits grow more aggressive. The lab becomes a pressure chamber. One evening, while Liesl attempts a critical refinement, an equipment recalibration overlaps with her hidden synthesis process. The systems clash. An alarm flickers brief, but enough to alert remote monitoring. Emergency protocols engage for a split second before stabilizing. It appears minor, easily explained as technical interference, but Sidwell is no longer satisfied with surface explanations. The catastrophe is not an explosion or visible destruction. It is suspicion. Once Sidwell begins cross-referencing chemical usage with declared output, discrepancies emerge. Tiny ones, rationalizable, but cumulative. Cullum suggests internal interference. Sidwell considers sabotage. The possibility that someone inside the lab is working against him becomes real. And if they trace that interference to Liesl, the consequences will not be limited to termination. They will interpret it as betrayal, as strategic deception, as a threat to their entire operation. Britt will be implicated automatically. Lucas, by proximity, will not escape scrutiny. Liesl understands this, yet she continues. The shock of realizing Britt's life is considered expendable has hardened into resolve. She would rather risk catastrophic exposure than leave her daughter vulnerable. The lab, once a symbol of entrapment, becomes her battlefield. But in fighting to protect Britt, she may accelerate the very disaster she fears. If Sidwell concludes the prototype is compromised, he may order immediate testing to prove viability. A rushed activation could cause instability far worse than the controlled delays Britt and Liesl have engineered. The facility itself could become ground zero for an uncontrolled demonstration of the weapon's capacity. The tragedy unfolding is layered. Liesl's maternal intervention is both salvation and spark. Her determination to synthesize freedom for Britt could expose the conspiracy, but it could also trigger a chain reaction none of them can contain. Sidwell tightens oversight. Cullum sharpens suspicion. Britt stands at the center of a storm created by men who seek power and a mother who seeks protection. And the most chilling truth is this: the lab was built to create controlled devastation. Now, under the weight of secrecy and maternal desperation, it may deliver exactly that, only not in the way Sidwell intended. Sidwell and Cullum believe control was their greatest weapon. They controlled the lab, the funding, the surveillance, and most importantly, they believed they controlled Britt. Their fatal mistake was assuming fear guaranteed obedience, and that no one inside their operation could outmaneuver them. That misplaced confidence became the crack that shattered everything. Frustrated by delays and suspicious of inconsistencies, Sidwell pushed for an early activation of the prototype. Cullum supported him, convinced that forcing a live test would expose any sabotage and reassert dominance. They saw it as tightening their grip. In reality, they were accelerating their own collapse. Liesl had already embedded a hidden failsafe within the system, subtle, nearly undetectable, designed to trigger a shutdown if the prototype was rushed. Britt, outwardly compliant, played her part perfectly, feeding Sidwell just enough reassurance to keep him moving forward. The night of activation was thick with tension. Sidwell stood confidently at the controls while Cullum watched like a predator. The sequence began, and for a moment, everything appeared stable. Then the system surged. Data spiked beyond safe limits. Warning lights flickered. Liesl's failsafe activated precisely as intended, destabilizing the process before it could reach full capacity. The lab erupted in chaos, not explosive, but electrical, volatile, unpredictable. That was the moment Jason chose to strike. Using the destabilized grid as cover, he breached the facility with ruthless precision. Surveillance glitched, alarms scrambled, and confusion fractured Sidwell's authority. Cullum reacted with force, but coordination was lost. Jason pulled Britt away from the control console, just as a containment flare surged across the room. Liesl locked down a secondary override, ensuring the prototype collapsed into irreversible shutdown rather than catastrophic detonation. In minutes, Sidwell's empire in progress crumbled. The weapon he intended to use as leverage became corrupted data and failed infrastructure. Cullum retreated, injured and furious. Sidwell realized too late that his confidence had blinded him. He underestimated Liesl's foresight. He underestimated Britt's resolve. Most of all, he underestimated Jason's intervention. The rescue was swift, but the aftermath was heavy. Britt was alive, but shaken by how close she had come to being sacrificed for ambition. Liesl's shock hardened into cold fury at the realization that her daughter had been treated as expendable. Jason remained silent, knowing this was not the end, but the beginning of something larger. Sidwell and Cullum's mistake was believing pressure would break people. Instead, it united them. Their plan collapsed not because of technical failure, but because they misjudged loyalty and resilience. The prototype is gone, but the war is not. Sidwell will recalibrate, Cullum will retaliate. And the destruction of their project has exposed networks far more dangerous than the lab itself. Britt has been saved. Liesl has proven formidable. Jason has disrupted a corrupt system. But the haunting truth remains: men like Sidwell do not accept defeat quietly. The rescue may have ended one disaster, but it has ignited a far more dangerous conflict that is only just beginning.